Welcome to a Fresh Perspective podcast, catering to the latest in ingredient trends, consumer insights, and food news. Brought to you by Corbion.
Hello, and welcome to the Fresh Perspective podcast. I'm Jenny Kulzer, your host, and today my co-host is Ashley Robertson. She's the Director of Global Marketing at Corbion. Hi, Ashley.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. Good. I'm excited to talk about plant-based meat today. Last time we talked about plant-based in bakery. This is a really interesting topic to me. Have you tried any plant-based meat products?
I have to be honest, I have not had many meat alternatives. I am a huge carnivore. I definitely love meat, but they are interesting. So I am excited to try some in the future. Hopefully Our guests can work on which ones are optimal to taste.
Ooh, you know what? I'm excited to hear about that too. And I was reading some interesting things before this podcast to prepare. One of them is about plant-based seafood. To me, that's even weirder than plant-based like beef. I don't know why.
Oh, really? That is interesting. Yeah. I think a lot of people are interested in trying that over some of the beef or pork.
I think it would taste good. I love seafood. So, and I like plant-based, all I've ever tried is plant-based like burgers, like black bean burgers or mushroom burgers. And I like both of those food items separately. So as a burger, it was a great vehicle for all the stuff I like to put on top.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah. I think of sometimes those, what is it, like fake crab that's on a salad bar. That's not, it's not made actually of crab. It's made of fish. So it's similar. It's still not an alternative. It's still a protein, but close enough.
Yeah. And I like that. I think that imitation crab is yummy.
Yes, I do too, for sure.
And it's way cheaper and easier to use in cooking. So.
That's right.
I'm in. Okay, so, I want to introduce our guests because we're going to talk a little bit more about plant-based and what people want and how they try it and when they try it and those kinds of things. So let's introduce Garrett McCoy, and he's the Director of Research and Development at Corbion, and Tom Rourke, the Director of Business Development. Welcome, gentlemen.
Hey, good morning.
There's Tom. Hi. Today we're talking a little bit about the plant-based, meat alternatives. And we kind of wanted to start off by talking about where do people typically try it for the first time? So do they just pick up the Impossible Burger or other plant-based meats at the supermarket, or do they try it in a restaurant? What can you tell us about that?
I think that the fast food chains, when they advertise like crazy with plant-based hamburger products, that draws a lot of interest. And that interest spills over into the retail market the next time the consumer visits their store. So I don't know really if they're trying it there first, but I think a lot of people are hearing the buzz from fast food advertisements.
Yeah, Tom, I mean, from my perspective, I think it's a lot about convenience. You can go to a fast food restaurant, try it once. You're not stuck with the onus of learning about the preparation of something new. So you have somebody preparing it for you. And I always say that food tastes better when somebody else cooks it for you anyways. So it's a good opportunity, low risk opportunity to try it for the first time.
Yeah, that's a great point. And yes, food does taste better when someone else cooks it. I don't even care what it is. Like my husband makes me dinner and it takes him 5 minutes to shred up some lettuce. I'm like, yay, someone made me dinner. Tell me why do you think, or what does the research say about why are people even trying this? Like, why would you choose at a restaurant to try the plant-based alternative meat rather than just ordering a burger?
Well, I think the biggest thing is that people construe that the plant-based products are more healthful. So the consumption of meat has been linked to heart disease. Processed meats has been linked to cancer. There's some data that shows that it might be linked to type 2 diabetes. And then you have the environmental concerns, the big farms, methane gas, so contributing to the ozone layer. And then cruelty to animals, too, is another reason why consumers are looking at plant-based alternatives. And then they're worried about the amount of antibiotics or hormones that animals are given. And that's just almost, you ask anybody, oh, it's all pumped up with antibiotics and hormones, which is not true. But, the basic consumer thinks it is. So those are some of the reasons that I think plant-based products are gaining popularity.
So, Tom, let me ask. Okay, so those are all the purchase drivers that kind of are in the realm of plant-based. When a customer goes to purchase it, a consumer goes to purchase it, what are the top factors that they're going to have, in terms of will they purchase it again?
I've talked to a lot of different manufacturers, and it's kind of interesting. Mainly, they're looking at flexitarians, and flexitarians want something that tastes like meat and looks like meat and has the texture of meat. Vegans and vegetarians are getting to the point where they're not really that concerned about that. So you've got two different classifications of consumers of these products, and they might not be as critical of texture and flavor because they're not equating it to the hamburger they ate yesterday or the chicken fillet they ate yesterday.
Yeah, fun fact, 98% of consumers who buy meat alternatives also purchase traditional meats. Only 2% of adults identify as vegan and 5% as vegetarian. And most consumers are omnivores or flexitarians. So it totally goes along with that, right?
Mm-hmm.
I would consider myself a flexitarian, although how is that different than just someone who eats both meat and vegetables? Isn't that an omnivore? I guess I don't know the difference.
What I think of as a flexitarian is somebody that'll eat both meat and vegetables. I mean, there's no hardcore line of I don't eat meat. So that's my understanding of a flexitarian, that they'll eat both. I could be wrong.
No, I think it's interesting. It's almost like maybe it's not a new word. Ashley, do you think it is new? Like, is this a new classification outside of omnivore?
Oh, flexitarian? Oh, I don't know. I think people just want to feel like they have, variability in their lifestyle. So maybe omnivore is not the term they're using. They just want to have the choice to be flexible in terms of what they're eating and not necessarily label it anything.
I think flexitarian might be a marketing word.
It's a good one.
I kind of think of it more the traditional center of the plate protein. Is it animal protein, or are we going to go with an alternative, maybe a plant-based protein item that's now kind of that center of the plate, the feature of the meal?
Well, that actually really does make a lot of sense, right? Because an omnivore, your center of the plate is probably still going to be real meat from an animal, right? A flexitarian might use something else, something plant-based. The interesting thing from a sales perspective or from a B2B perspective is that the plant-based market is growing so much faster than other food and beverage items. So the plant-based market is estimated at $5.6 billion, and it's growing 29% year over year. You can't say, bread is growing 29% year over year. So this is a huge opportunity for companies to, increase sales revenues and kind of move forward with some really interesting ways to present plant-based meat. When you are, looking for a plant-based meat, or when you try one, are you expecting it to truly taste like a steak or like a burger? Or are you fine with it tasting like mushrooms or, different types of flavors? Like the flavor profile, does it need to be meaty?
Myself, I want it to taste like a meat product because I'm a carnivore. They say it's a plant-based hamburger or a plant-based chicken breast or nugget. That's where my brain goes, and I'm equating it to that. Whereas somebody that is not a consumer of meat products probably doesn't care. So they're just evaluating it for itself. I either like it or I don't. And that's a huge hurdle. I can speak to it later, but that's a huge hurdle for manufacturers because the large volume is people that are eating both meat and plant-based products. So that's where the sales are. They're trying to match the texture, the flavor, the savoriness, the fatty mouthfeel of meat.
Yeah. One thing I'll add too, Jenny, is when you're thinking about the way people eat, right? If you're talking about what is the main item on that center of plate, they're not wanting to, have any trade-offs, right? So they're going to expect that some of the meat alternatives taste like the regular animal proteins would. They don't want to feel like they're trading down. They want to make sure, like, if this is a delightful experience, if I'm eating a steak, it's better be a delightful experience if I'm eating a meat alternative.
And I think the experience is important, especially when we think about B2B plant-based alternative, items. I think that is the goal to make it not be a trade-off, right? And I think that's exactly why things are kind of taking off right now, because we've got so many options now to kind of help it taste the right way. So, okay, thank you so much. We are going to move on to a really fun segment called Eat, Save, Give.
Now it's time for Eat, Save, Give, a thoughtful peek into the hearts, minds, and taste palates of our guests.
So Eat, Save, Give is a fun game we play with our hosts and our guests. We're going to tell you 3 food items, and we're going to ask you which of the food items you would eat right now, like this very minute, because it's your favorite or you love it, which one you might save for later, and then which one you might give away. So today's options are black bean burger on a potato bun. That's one option. Second option, plant-based crab cakes served with garlic butter, obviously, of course. And then the final one is a plant-based cheesecake. Ashley, let's start with you.
Yeah, I would eat the cheesecake, save the crab cake, and give that black bean burger away. Not my favorite.
Got it. Awesome. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Black bean burger, you can put a lot of fun spices in there. Garrett, what do you think?
Oh man, I'm gonna eat the crab cakes. No, I'll save the black bean burger and I'll give away the extra cheesecake to Ashley.
Thanks, Garrett.
Dessert. All right, Tom.
I'm going to eat the black bean burger first, and then I'm going to save the crab cake. And I don't even like regular cheesecake, so that goes to Ashley.
Sweet. I got 3 cheesecakes so far.
Yeah, you're going to have like the whole cheesecake when you're done, because I'm also giving mine away. I like cheesecake, but I'm just not a big sweet person. So also, like Garrett, I'm eating the crab cake right now because garlic and butter on anything I'm going to love. And if they have mastered it and it tastes like crab, then it's probably going to be amazing. And then I'll save the black bean burger because I really do like burgers, mostly because they're a vehicle for all the yummy stuff I can put on top.
Nice.
Okay, thanks for playing Eat, Save, Give. We are here on the Fresh Perspective podcast with Garrett McCoy, Tom Rourke, and Ashley Robertson as my co-host, and we are talking about plant-based meat alternatives. Tell me a little bit about what you think. Where do you think this market is going? What are some of the upcoming trends? Are we seeing any, what's next for this?
I just completed an interview with a lot of manufacturers of plant-based products. I want to address one of the things that you mentioned before, and that was the growth. And you have the numbers right on. But if you talk to some of the larger companies, and I won't name any, but say the big meat companies that are getting involved in plant-based, they'll tell you the growth is steady, but they'd like to see more. Whereas if you talk to the smaller companies that are just manufacturing plant-based products, they're growing like crazy, somewhere between 20 to 35%. And their biggest issue, you ask them what their biggest manufacturing issue is, capacity, because many of them depended on co-packers or whatnot. So it's finding or making enough product. So those people are growing like crazy. Whereas, if you talk to the big guys, 20% growth of 1% of their total sales still isn't that much. I just wanted to bring that out too, as far as the growth, because it makes it sound like it's just moving beyond what the sales of meat currently is, and it is growing, but you have to look at it in perspective.
Yeah, that's a good perspective. I think it's probably important.
We've talked about kind of like texture of a product. What are some of those other things that consumers are using to judge whether or not they want to purchase a plant alternative or meat alternative again?
It's flavor. That's going to be the biggest driver behind repeat purchases. You can sell a product for the first time a lot of different ways, but if you don't live up to expectations, and I know we kind of discussed a little bit earlier of if you're marketing a product, for example, a burger, it's always going to be compared back to that gold standard or what I would call the gold standard, which is the animal protein item, whatever it's emulating. And so if you can't get close to that flavor, close to that texture as well, it's really going to be difficult to bring consumers back to it. There's an exception to every rule, of course, and there may be some that whatever's driving that initial purchase, that may still drive the repeat business, but ultimately it's going to come down to quality.
So texture, flavor, quality. What are we seeing in terms of, like that ingredient label? Are there any consumers concerned around like the length of that compared to some of the other meat products on the market?
We're starting to see that. Initially, people that are familiar with the meat industry, for years we've had to simplify our labels, get them as simple as possible,
right.
Kitchen cupboard labeling. And then the plant-based comes out and they are anything but kitchen cupboard labels. They are really long and very chemical sounding. But initially, they had the health halo. Consumers weren't that critical, but they're starting to be. They're saying, hey, I look at the nutritional of this and I'm looking at the nutritionals on bacon and I'm not seeing a lot of difference. And then they also say, you're charging me $7 a pound for this plant-based product, and the first ingredient is water. So why are they so expensive? So they're starting to get some pushback, the manufacturers are, from consumers.
Interesting.
Yeah, it is. And I think that the pandemic might have affected this just a little bit. I've got a little bit of research here, a little fun fact. The International Food Information Council reports that 41% of consumers in the US increased their consumption of foods from plant sources, and 85% made at least some changes in how they eat or prepare foods since the pandemic began. So I almost wonder if, people being at home and eating at home more often started thinking about, man, we should be eating healthier because we're sitting here. We have the time, we have the space to try something new. You get tired of cooking the same things over and over and over. So I don't know. What do you think about that pandemic aspect? Is that going to continue to move and change and how people eat?
I mean, it very well could be, but we could go back to the opposite. I mean, it's the opportunity to try new things. If you're spending more time at home, you have lots of more, free time, spare time, so to speak, because we're not traveling. We're all cooped up. Opportunity to try new items, try new preparation, recipes. The question mark for me is, does that stick? Or right. As we go back to, loosening everything up in terms of restrictions, everybody's going back to work, resuming their normal kind of hectic, especially summer travel schedules. Are we going to go back to the convenience aspect of it, go back to what we know? Or are we going to keep some of these new skills, these new recipes that we developed? I don't know. I don't have an answer for that. I don't even know what I'm going to do. So
I know that during the pandemic, most of the people that I knew either put on weight or lost weight.
Nobody stayed the same.
Nobody weighs the same. Everybody's either fatter or skinnier. So I think, they made a conscious decision at home that, hey, we're home, we're going to eat better, we're going to eat right, we're going to reduce the amount of meat. One of the things that's wrong with meat is people love it. So they eat maybe a little too much of it. So it's probably a good thing that they reduce some of their consumption and have a more well-rounded diet.
Yeah, well, it'll be interesting to just kind of watch and keep our eyes on it, and we'll have to have you back. And once we kind of see what's going to happen after we get, the pandemic under control. So thank you, Garrett and Tom, for joining us on the Fresh Perspective podcast today. You've been excellent. Can't wait to have you back again.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Thank you.
Now I need to go to the supermarket and see what plant-based stuff can I get from there, and maybe how can I trick my kids into eating it without them knowing. That I think would be like the number one test.
Yes, no, I know. And one of the things we didn't cover was kind of like the meat alternative blends with vegetables. And I think my son would love to be able to have something like that. And that way he's getting some protein, some vegetables, it's not necessarily all or one.
Yeah, I love that. I think that would be interesting to try. Well, I'll have to conduct that experiment and get back to you. All right. Well, that wraps us for today. Thank you, Ashley, for co-hosting with me. Don't forget to subscribe, follow, and check out thecorbioncut.com, and we'll see you soon.
And don't forget, keep creating.